All right, we're just gonna put it here. I've been trying to figure out a good spot to put the camera, but I can't figure out a good spot. There's no good spot, and this is what you're gonna, that's the background. What's up, everyone? I am Jared Winkler. I am now 2 years off of nicotine. I figured this is probably a good time to make a video. It's literally a couple of hours and it will be my 2-year anniversary. And it's been a long time since I've made a video. So I didn't even know really what to talk about, but this is probably the time to do it. Number one, I guess I've been looking, I get comments on a pretty regular basis. And recently I've gotten a few comments that I find kind of frustrating, kind of amusing. It's interesting to see perspective, because for me, I feel like my quit, while it was challenging and it continues to be challenging, it's pretty easy, and I feel like it just gets easier as you go along, and I'm so far out now that I feel like it's super easy. But there are people that watch my videos and somehow hear the challenging parts as if I'm shouting them into a megaphone. There are literally comments where people are like, if it's so challenging, wouldn't you rather just keep smoking? It's literally just a situation, I think, where people are trying to confirm their bias. They know it's super hard to quit. That's the reason why they haven't quit. And so all they hear is my agony, which there isn't. There really is not any agony. I guess that's something that I've learned through doing this video series, and even the last video series early on. I'd even made a comment that whenever I look particularly upset in the thumbnail of a video, that video tends to do better. I think it's the same thing when people hear like challenges, they're like, oh, it must be terrible. I'd prefer just to keep going and not deal with all that. Listen, I'm telling you right now, the worst of it is in the beginning, and right now, 2 years down the line, I rarely think about it. But rare is not never. I will say there are times where it is kind of challenging. One thing that I knew about, I just went back to Illinois, where I'm from, for Christmas. I just got back a few days ago. And one thing I've always known about quits is when you find yourself in an old setting, in a place where you used to smoke, there are triggers that are buried in those places. So even though I had been to Illinois since I quit smoking, I've been there one other time, I still knew that going there would be triggers, just because I had a whole life there as a smoker. And it's interesting how those like pathways in your brain kind of, I don't know, they just kind of get unlocked when you get back into that place. So when I was in Illinois, there were a couple times that I thought about it. Nothing that made me feel like I was gonna cave or change. I mean, since I've become a non-smoker, I have literally changed my life. I've focused on my health for the past 2 years. I've tried to be the best person that I can be. I've changed my fitness. I've changed my eating habits. So I feel like I pay so much attention to my health now that it'd be crazy to screw up and go back. But there have been times, and especially in the last year, I think I had one time where my brain actually thought about it. I knew I wouldn't cave, but I'll explain to you what the scenario was. So I was at a bar. I had a few drinks with friends, and then the bar closed and we were outside and all the smokers are lighting up. And it's not, I know a couple of people, but it's mainly people I don't know, and they're all smoking and they're talking and they're having a great time. And in my head, I don't really have much to say. I don't know them well. And I start thinking about, man, I could, if I wanted to, just become a smoker again. I could do it. And like, I played with that idea for a second. I wasn't gonna do it, but it's just a reminder that you really are one bad decision away from unlocking that whole situation again. I'm sorry, it's the middle of the night. It's like hard to think. But yeah, I know this. This is something that I've always known. Going into this quit, I did have a 3-year quit, and I did go back. So yeah, I did. Even the other day, I was hanging out with a buddy, and I was in his room looking at his computer, and I turned around and I saw a pack of cigarettes, and real quick, my mind was like, wow, cigarettes. But again, these are like fleeting things that happen. They don't really govern my life, and those are examples of kind of the the playing in my head of like possibly going back. Generally, if I run into a scenario where someone's smoking, there's usually a negative connotation to it. Like, I was driving in a car recently, I was in the back seat and the driver started smoking and I was just suffocating in the back seat. If you've watched my videos, you know I have this crazy thing about secondhand smoke. So first off, I'm already freaking out that I'm stuck in a car with secondhand smoke. And I still stick by that. I say, if you're quitting smoking, just stay away from smoke, if you can. If you can. I have been in plenty of situations in these last 2 years where I couldn't avoid it, where I was going to be either in a room that someone was smoking, in a car where someone was smoking, or just in a circle, like at a wedding I was at where people were smoking right next to me. So obviously you can be around secondhand smoke and it can, you know, not cause you to smoke again. I always have this fear I'm going to go through more withdrawals or something again, but I don't think that even that has any factual basis. I don't think I've ever felt withdrawal symptoms from secondhand smoke. But just as a point, I just try to stay away from it. But the point I'm making is generally smoke or cigarettes around me just has a negative connotation. I don't really care about it. It's those experiences where it has me thinking about the fact that I was a smoker or what smoking would be like. Those don't happen very often, but they do happen, and it's important, especially if you're far along in your quit, to realize that this is like a lifelong game that you're playing. This is a thing that you are going to have to keep in check always, but not people commenting who comment, that sounds terrible. It's not terrible. I don't know. Maybe I am making that sound really bad. I promise you it's not really bad. It's totally easy to deal with. It's very rare that I have to deal with it. There are days that go by where not even the thought of a cigarette goes through my mind. Anyway, how long? It's like 8 minutes. I've talked about nothing, so I'm really good at doing that. Another thing I'll talk about just briefly here is the fact that when I quit smoking, 6 people in my life quit smoking around me. One of those 6 people is still quit, so 2 of us total. And honestly, I feel like that's kind of to be expected. If you think of like my experience, I'm doing really well. This is the second extremely long quit I've had, but I've quit so many times. Thankfully, all those people that quit around the same time that I did, they all tried because one other one stuck. 2 of us stuck so far. It's important that those other people have those first and third and fifth and 7th quits, whatever they were on, because eventually they will get to it if they want to. And it will have taken that experience of messing up to do it again, to get back on off that horse. You know what I'm saying. And now, I don't know, I think in other videos I've kind of delved into what I consider the weaknesses of what happened with those people, why they crumbled. When it all comes down, they all made one poor decision, and that was to smoke. That's the only thing you don't have to do, or that you have to not do. You can't smoke if you're quitting smoking. So, it's simple, it really is. But in some of their cases, in 2 of the cases, I know for a fact, I've talked about this in the past, but 2 of those people who have since gone back recommended to me that I take a puff of a cigarette months in because I'll hate it so much. And it'll remind me why I quit in the first place. Now, I'm not fooled by that in the slightest. I know personally, if I were to have a single cigarette, one single one, I'm back 1,000%. I have to abstain entirely. And both of them were lucky that they were actually able to do that, have that experience, and not go back immediately. But I think ultimately that decision is kind of what undid them. So they both felt it was okay to have a cigarette and dislike it. But as we all know, nobody or I don't think many people in the world try their first cigarette and think that it tastes wonderful. I think generally we all disliked the taste, but that didn't dissuade us from getting addicted to the drug over time. That was part of their downfall. one of those two had an experience. He lost a family member, and that kind of became a vice, and he kind of said, this is okay, I'm gonna do this now for a while. But then he quit again after he gave himself that time, and then he's since gone back. I hate to say it, but no matter what is happening in your life, you can't use that as an excuse to smoke. I know that terrible things happen to people, and sometimes we feel like we need to cling on to something, but an addiction is so good at manipulating us and making us think that it's okay now. It's not, unfortunately. I totally understand why he did that, and I think no less of him, but I do believe that he didn't need to do that. The addiction kind of planted itself in there. Then there was one other dude who, I know we've talked about this, a month in, he thanked me on Facebook in a big monumental post about how he had beaten the addiction. It's over with. Listen, I promise you, at a month in, if you're feeling great, that's awesome. You haven't beaten it yet. I'm about to hit 2 years and I haven't beaten it yet. I believe it will still get easier. It's not even part of my life. I barely ever think about it, and I believe that will even get easier. I will think of it even less a year from now when I'm talking to you. But at a month, you are in the trenches still. And I think that it is a detriment to yourself if you think that you have won the battle ever. If you say, I beat it, that means you're throwing your guard down. If you're in a fight with someone and you beat them, you can put your hands down. But if they can still attack you, you haven't beat them, you have to be on guard still. And we as ex-smokers have to be on guard. It's just the way that it has to be. One of the other people, she had read the book Easy Way, which I think is super, super important. I would say to anyone, read that book just because it drills into your head what the addiction is. I think the more you understand the cycle of addiction and how all the feelings associated with the addiction, everything, none of that matters. It's literally just your body craves the drug, and in order to not crave the drug, you need to remove the drug, which feels unnatural, but is the only way out. The more you understand that and you believe it, the better your chances will be. So she read that book, and honestly, it was her first time quitting, and I'm not sure that she even was ready or wanted to. She quit because I quit, and she was inspired, which is awesome, but we had talked both as smokers. I had talked about how I planned to quit a whole bunch, and I remember her telling me that she had never thought about quitting. That, not that there's no downside to it for her, but she just hadn't really considered it. So that was her first time trying to quit, and granted, I don't think she smoked as much as I did, whatever. She did go back. But I believe that she can and will quit someday if she does want to. And then there was one other girl who I worked with who I remember she went back to smoking and wrote like an apology to me. And I get it. When I have failed my quits in the past, I have felt guilty and I've not wanted to tell people, and there's people that I felt like I had to come clean to, but the fact that I guess it's not that important to it, but the fact that she felt the need to apologize to me worries me a little bit, because it's not about me. And I told her, I don't care whether you're a smoker or not, you're all good in my book, but you have to deal with that. I don't know. I don't feel like anybody should be let off the hook, but I also, I don't want to give anybody a hard time. If you weren't ready, you weren't ready. I'm trying to think if there was anyone else. And then there's the one other guy who has remained quit with me. And he also read The Easy Way. And I don't know why it stuck with him. I just don't know. I assume that he's wanted to quit as much as I did. I think he has had a long quit in his past as well. I think that helps. I think that if you plan to quit and it's your first time, know that it definitely can stick. You can quit on the first time. If you don't, you are like most people who do quit because like they don't get it on the first time. And I think that if you have failed, that will help prepare you for the next one. And you should learn every time you do fail. If you do, you should learn what that and try to remember what that feels like so you know what to expect the next time around. But in any case, I have talked for a long time here. I hope that you are all doing well. I hope that you have started an awesome 2020, and I look forward to a great year myself. I will try to post some videos to keep talking with you guys about this. I'm still super passionate about it. I feel a little bit intimidated making videos sometimes just because I don't know what to talk about. It's funny, I'd really like this channel to be truly a health channel and talk about other topics as well. All right, folks, I hope you have an awesome 2020. Please subscribe to the channel. If you've been watching the videos, like let me know. And if you are trying to quit, if it was your New Year's resolution, you can totally do this. I did it. I am currently doing it. You can absolutely do it. I promise you. There are a whole bunch of people out there who are in the midst of their quits. You can be one of them. So yeah. Anyway, folks, it was awesome catching up with you. I will talk to you soon. Peace out.